Hi golfers, Rob Cheney here from GOLFTEC Singapore. Today we're outside on the golf course. We're going to be discussing awkward lies, those sloping lies that you don't come across on the driving range or in the bay at GOLFTEC. How do you deal with the ball above your feet and the ball below your feet? Let's get into the detail you need to play these shots more successfully. So when it comes to sloping lies, the ball below feet is one that can really cause massive issues for most amateur golfers. It's one they struggle with and one I see them have a lot of difficulty hitting successfully. So when it comes to understanding ball above and ball below your feet, you really need to know a little bit about what happens to where the loft of the club points when the shaft is tilted up or down. And you can do this exercise. I've just got a T-peg here. I'm going to stick it to the club face and get the base of the club level with the base of the camera, and the loft or the tee is pointing basically at that tallest tree in the distance. So that would be a flat shot if my ball was on a flat lie. If I move my shaft up and raise the heel off the ground, which is what I'm technically doing when my ball is below my feet, you see how the tee now points a little more to the right. So I certainly have to build that into my setup. I need to understand that even though it looks like my club's still pointing at the target, it's actually pointing slightly to the right. Now you've seen the video which suggests that the loft is pointing more to the right. That will help us to understand that when the ball is below our feet, we must make an adjustment and aim a bit more to the left. So we're going to aim to the left with my feet and my club face, and in order to account for the fact the ball is much lower down than I am, I'm going to take a slightly wider stance, flex my knees a little bit more, and feel like I tilt or bend more forwards at setup. And what that's going to encourage is it's going to, as I bend more forward, it's going to encourage my swing to be more vertical or upright. And that as well is contributing towards a more of a slice or fade pattern with this shot. I may also choose to stand a little closer to the ball just to ensure that my upright swing fits into this space. But once again, like we spoke about last week on the uphill and downhill lie, the real trick to this is making sure you have a couple of practice swings and you pay attention to where your club is going to bottom out. And once again, I've seen so many examples, players on awkward slopes who make practice swings that either the club just swings at thin air with absolutely no contact with the ground at all, and they step in to try and play the shot, or they make a practice swing where the club bottoms out in completely the wrong place, different to where the golf ball is, and once again people just step in completely oblivious to the fact that they've just rehearsed a pretty horrible shot, and it's not that surprising when they step in and the results are not as they want. So once we've set up with the slight modifications, a little bit to the left with my setup, standing a little closer and getting the shaft just a touch more upright, bend forward, I'm also holding this club at its longest length, meaning I'm holding right at the end of the grip, and even for me sometimes I end up with my hand off the edge of the grip. I'm doing that to try to make the club as long as possible. Because the ball's so much further away from me, I need to make all these slight modifications to help me be able to reach the ground, okay? So I've made my changes, made my modifications, made a couple of practice swings where I'm hitting the ground right where the ball is, which I'm happy about. So I'm choosing to make a slightly shorter swing than normal, and in order to offset that, I'm taking one more club than I usually would for distance purposes. Okay, a couple of little backswing rehearsals. Even once I'm stood into the ball here, I'm not just going to hit it straight away. I'm going to get a sense of what I want this swing to feel like. Stay bent over, shoulder down, really trying to get a sense of that club working a little bit more up and down than normal. That's a pretty good outcome. Good strike, ball, then divot. And it was also very noticeable, this is quite a severe slope I'm on right here, how I wasn't really able to swing very hard at this. I think that's something you need to consider when you're trying this shot on the course, not trying to treat it like a regular full shot from the point of view of the setup, but also from the point of view of the swing. Make a swing that's a little more controlled and within yourself. Ensure that you're hitting the ground in the right place, and you're going to start to have a lot more success with this shot than you're currently doing. So when the ball is above your feet, the likelihood is the ball will tend to go more to the left for a right-handed golfer. Let's just discuss why that is. So we're going to look at where the loft of this is pointing when the club is flat on the ground, and that loft, that tee, is pointing at the big tree. As I position the ball above my feet, meaning I'm going to raise the toe of the club here off the ground, look what happens to where the loft is pointing relative to that big tree in the distance. It's now starting to point to the left. And depending on how much I tip this club to the side, it can end up pointing quite a long way to the left. That's a really important thing to understand, that the angle of the club face is not just dictated by open and closed like this. Okay, it's dictated by up and down. For those of you who slice, you probably love it when the ball's above your feet. A little bit easier and more comfortable to set up to. You don't have to bend forward as much. The natural shape of the swing has to be a little bit more around you to fit the slope. You can hit some really good shots from this lie. Let's just talk about some of the setup changes I would be encouraging you to make. So we're going to aim to the right. How much is somewhat dependent on the slope, severity, the club you're using. Because I tend to overdraw when I'm on this lie, I'm going to aim quite a bit to the right. For this one, I'm going to aim over that bunker on the right hand side. I'm now going to feel like I stand up a little bit more than I maybe would do ordinarily. And on longer clubs, I'd probably find myself going down the shaft slightly. Because I've still got quite a short club in my hand, I'm going to hold this at its regular length, but I very much encourage you to go grip down the shaft slightly when the ball's above your feet and you're using a longer club, because sometimes it can be very difficult to fit the club into the space that you've got. Once you've taken that setup, again, some conversations we've had about sloping lies previously, make some practice swings and look for two things. One, where does the club hit the ground? That is always going to be number one piece that I want you to take away from all of the sloping lie advice that I've given you. Wherever you're positioned on the golf course, whatever slope you're dealt, whenever you come to pull the trigger, before you do, use your practice swings and hit the ground, or check where you're hitting the ground. I'm demonstrating hitting the ground in the right place. I want to get that feedback that before I step into this ball, that I'm going to make a good contact. Put the bottom of the swing in the right location. Once you've set up, you've made a couple of little practice swings. When the ball's above my feet, I feel like the swing's a little bit more around me. And again, I'm going to talk about balance and feeling like you're able to put some effort into this shot without trying to kill it, and in doing so losing your balance and tipping over or falling to the side. Make practice swings that are balanced. Okay, I'm going to hit this aiming to the right, slightly flatter backswing feeling for me, and when I hit this, I hit it with arms straight to try and just control that club face and that swing radius a little bit better. That's close. So that was a lot of shape for a 9-iron, but I built that in. I was probably aiming 30 yards to the right for this shot. Slope, I would say, is medium slope. It's not extreme, but because of my tendency to draw, I know the club face is actually pointing more left, and I know that the mechanics of this shot would tend to encourage more of a draw anyway. I had to factor that in. So guys, there you have it, some ideas about playing from awkward lies where the ball is above your feet or below your feet. Some things to consider and take into account, but ultimately really comes down to some trial and error on your part. You've got to have a few ideas of what to do and some expectations, but this is so player dependent and even slope dependent that it's very difficult to write out some absolute rules. What I would say, as I touched on in today's video and also last week's video that dealt with the uphill and the downhill slopes, ultimately the number one thing you can be doing to help you play from these lies is use your practice swing and pay attention to where your club is hitting the ground. I've said it before in chipping videos, playing lessons, the number of times people aren't hitting the ground in the right place and they don't even realize it. So take a little look at where your club is bottoming out and make the necessary adjustments that you see fit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't already, do go back and check out last week's video that covered uphill slopes and downhill slopes. Very, very interesting and again, very useful information in that video to help you play better golf. Until next time guys, I hope you found the last 2 weeks of on-course videos helpful. I can certainly do some more in the future. Let me know what you'd like to see. Get down in those comments. If you're not already subscribed, please do click that subscribe button. If you liked today's video, click that thumbs up. And if you wish to, share it with your friends to help them play these awkward lie shots a little bit better. Until next time guys, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you again very soon for another video.